Good morning. I'm Laura Cunningham here with Precision Agronomy Advisor Phil Long with another episode of Ask the Agronomist. As crops continue to emerge across Latham country, a popular topic has been concerns about uneven emergence. So, Phil, looking back at this planting season then, what could have been maybe the culprit behind some of that uneven emergence we're seeing in cornfields now?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It feels like it's later than what it is, but talking about emergence and trying to evaluate stands, I was just talking with somebody the other day. I'm like, well, honestly, we got some really good time here to make a decision, not necessarily in looking at replant, but we're sitting so early in the season. I mean, we've had warm temperatures. We're kind of in a little bit of a up and down period, but we've had some really good conditions to get corn out of the ground, but we are seeing some uneven emergence. And some of those culprits that I've been seeing, number one, seed to soil contact. And I saw this last couple of years, really. I've talked about it before. Residue in the furrow does not conduct water to the seed. So, that's one thing. If you have excess, and this comes from, corn on corn or lots of residue, so high yields, which is a good thing. But we got to manage that residue right so that it's not in contact with the seed. That's a big one. Seed depth, obviously, in a lot of cases, this is, what I'm seeing in terms of uneven emergence. It's just simple, maybe within row. I've got a good example of this we'll put up, but you can see the difference in even 2 days of emergence, the difference between, a little bit, maybe a ½ inch or so in planting depth. And it was not the year to shallow up, that's for sure. Just with the moisture conditions we've had, some soil types that we're seeing definitely did not have the moisture, maybe not even enough moisture to germinate. And then, at least for those of us that are in Iowa, we have maybe a shower or two we were blessed with here in the last week or so, which did help some of those germinate. So now they're coming, which is a good thing. But yeah, it's all over the board. I know across Latham country, north to south, it's just so different in terms of conditions, moisture conditions, temperature conditions. Now going back down a little bit in terms of temperature conditions, we can't control the moisture. We can't control the temperature either. The best we can do is make sure that we're putting that seed at the proper depth and not in contact with residue, and give it the best shot. But definitely as the corn's coming up and we're starting to be able to row it, I have noticed, the inevitable, the yellow corn, and it may be a little more yellow than other years too. So yeah, a lot of things going on, even though it seems like we've had a pretty good start to the spring in terms of, getting planting operations finished up.
Yeah. So you mentioned that planting date window across Latham country. Some were putting in corn in mid-April, and now there's still some folks putting in corn. Now here we are in mid-May. So for those that are still planting then, should we be making any changes to our planting plan at all?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And the answer right off the bat is no. We're not there yet. Obviously, another week or two might make a difference. But like I said, we're so early, really, considering what we're talking about now and so forth, with emergence and everything. I mean, this is a good thing. If you're still planting, it's not that big a fear. I mean, really, that window to me, from Iowa to North Dakota is mid to late April to mid-May. And some years, your highest yield is going to come from planting corn on May 10th. And some years it's going to be April 25th. It just depends. And we don't know that until the season's complete. Right now, we may hope that ours is going to yield the most, but it just depends. So as long as you're within that window, you're all right. And especially in terms of beans, we're still well within that window. The biggest thing to me is going back to the moisture. So, I think one of the challenges we're going to have this year is that, roots, we always say the roots follow the moisture. That's kind of how it works essentially, but they do follow the moisture as it goes down. If the moisture depletes faster than the roots can grow, though, we're going to have some problems. So, and the other thing, the temperature, which I didn't mention too much, but, we started out, really, it's been a roller coaster. Early April, at least down here and even up in Minnesota and so forth, it was really high. We had good soil temperatures right after Easter, kind of got everybody really excited and ready to go, even though they didn't want to be. And a lot of stuff went in the ground then. And then we kind of went down a little bit, and then we went back up into the April 20s, late April. which was good. And then kind of like last year on Mother's Day, we kind of dipped back down. At least here, southern Minnesota and Iowa, over the last weekend had a cold rain. Not ideal. Definitely, I heard sleet and some snow and so forth. So it was cold. It's been cold in the morning. We had soil temperatures last week in the 60s, and now we're back down to the low 50s. So it's definitely been up and down. Those kind of conditions, corn or beans, do not love either of those kind of conditions. Corn and beans would love to see soil temps 65, 70 plus, and they'd be out of the ground pretty quick. So I've noticed that it has been kind of slow and staggered, even from the difference of 1 to 2 to 3 different planting dates. 3 days in succession essentially made a big difference on when that corn emerged. So it's just crazy, the little bit of roller coaster we've been in, considering how dry this season started, and we thought, oh, this is going to be great. Mother Nature always throws some curveballs at us.
Roller coaster, that's a good way to describe it. So knowing that our corn seedlings have gone through those ups and downs, what are some things that we should be looking for and evaluating on those newly emerged or even not yet emerged corn seedlings?
Yeah, that's a great point. And that make sure that you're scouting. I feel like I talk about this every week, but get out there and dig. This is the perfect time to do it because number one, you don't want to get too excited. If there's corn in the ground, we always talk about, usually, especially with early season corn seedling diseases, we talk about brown and mushy, things like that, which is usually when I go out and do a diagnostic call, a lot of times that's what we're looking at. This year, it may not be the case. Just because the corn's been in the ground a while doesn't mean that it's disease ridden and brown and mushy and dying. You want to dig that up and see, number one, what's going on. Is it a green or pink seed that hasn't moved? Then it didn't get moisture. If it's a green or pink seed and it's got a little root going down and it's white, the root's white, and maybe there's a piece of the coleoptile coming up, then it's healthy. White, green obviously is healthy too, but it's underground most likely, so it's going to be white or yellowish, which those are both good. So feel the seed. Is it hard? Is it soft? Those kind of things give you an indication. My biggest thing is it in certain areas or is it within row? If it's within the row, you don't have your picket fence stand, and you can dig them up and see issues. It could be a residue issue that maybe some adjustments should have been made and they weren't. But if it's certain areas, a soil type issue where moisture was the biggest factor or temperature, based on uneven emergence between a couple soil types, it could just be a moisture and temperature thing, and it may just need a rain. I have a feeling in the soybean side, we're going to see a lot of those cases where they're going to need a rain to get all the way out, and hopefully, they get the rain before they germinated and then stopped growing. So the best case scenario is that they didn't get enough moisture to germinate, and they're waiting on that moisture, and then they're going to take off and get going. But if they germinate, go through the process, and then slow down and don't have moisture, then we're going to be in trouble. So I think in a lot of cases, this one thing that to me is going to stand out here probably in a few weeks that we may see a lot more of as farmers get prepared for post-spraying and so forth. The one thing that tends to show up about that time is what we call rootless corn syndrome, or some people call it floppy corn. Unfortunately, that shows up once you get a decent wind or something. A lot of times it doesn't mean the corn's dead, but what's happening is after that corn gets through that initial phase where those seedling roots die off, we lose the energy from the seed because that only lasts so long. Those nodal roots have to come out and start providing for that plant. If they come out into dry soil, they can make it for a little while, but they can't grow inches and inches down to find moisture to survive, because eventually the end of that nodal root will desiccate and die, become brown, and then will stop growing. And that's what causes rootless corn syndrome. And then you'll just see the plant fall over because there's no supporting roots on it. I think it's going to be interesting here the next few weeks. Moisture is still looks to be a challenge. Just doesn't look like there's a lot in the forecast. But I think that's one thing we're going to have to keep our eye on for sure as we're scouting fields.
Okay, great tips. Things to start watching for. Any additional things you'd like to leave our listeners with as we wrap up today?
Oh, I didn't mention one thing, but that's if you have irrigation, that's a blessing. We can't control the weather, but we can pray for a little rain, that's for sure. And I think we all need it based on the looking at the drought monitor. So hopefully we all get a decent rain to help get going.
All right, great way to end it today. I agree. Praying for all of you to get the ideal growing conditions, whether that's smooth planting or some heat and rain to get those seedlings out of the ground. So thanks to our listeners for tuning in today. We'll be back next week with another topic.